Welcome to Made for Mondays, the source for digging a little deeper into the Believers Church Sunday messages and finding ways to apply them to our daily lives. Together, let's take a deeper look and find a way to bring Mondays back to life.
Well, hey there, everybody. Welcome to the Made for Mondays podcast. Hey, friends.
Hi.
Hello.
How is everybody?
Good.
Doing great. It's Monday.
Fantastic. It is Monday, and we've got a full episode today, so we're going to jump right in. Before we get into everything that happened this weekend, well, it is part of the weekend. It's Friday night.
Right. Yeah, that's
Friday,
for sure. That kicks off the weekend.
Friday night is a little bit of an exaggeration. Really,
True.
more like Friday evening. So Friday evening, we did something for the very first time here at Believers. And Heather, why don't you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, we had our very first baby boomer bingo and potluck.
Yes.
Boomers.
Yeah, they weren't all boomers. There were some older than boomers,
I love
but
that.
it was 59 and up. Mm-hmm. It was super fun.
I saw some
It
pictures.
was
It looked
fun.
pretty awesome.
Yeah, we just had this event that we invited that age group to come be a part of. We would say that Believers is more of like our largest demographic is sort of like young families.
Yeah.
And so sometimes there's this feeling that the older generation is getting lost in the dust of the next generation. And yet, like, we love that the older generation is here. We wouldn't be as full body of a church as we are without them.
100%.
And so we just wanted to kind of celebrate all that they bring to our church family and by having a fun night.
Yeah.
And so we did that. We had a potluck, which I know
You
was
love.
my idea, but
Yeah.
I don't like a potluck.
I've never seen you eat so much. That was, it was
Really?
incredible. Oh my God.
Crushing it?
She was crushing
Oh, I love
it.
that.
I sat down at one of the tables and one of our guests, she was like, "Oh, aren't you going to go get food?" And I was like, "Oh, I knew someone was going to ask me this." And so I was just like, "Yeah, this is not like super my thing. I can't."
I mean, did it have
Do
a
this?
real potluck feel? I mean, it was like,
1,000%.
Yes, it definitely did. And
Yes.
there was
was there KFC?
there was a bucket
Yes.
of KFC.
There has to be, okay.
Yeah.
And
It was a
someone
true
else
potluck.
also brought
some Bojangles.
Oh, man.
So that was fantastic.
Yeah.
Yes.
I loved
But-
that. That was
Yeah,
the first
lots
piece
of covered dishes.
that was the first piece of KFC I've had in years. I'm not even
Yeah,
exaggerating.
Jamie went right for the bucket
Yeah,
for
it's-
sure.
I mean, that's a pro
The
move.
bucket of gold
That's a pro move right there.
at the buffet table for sure.
Yeah. We were in the gathering room, so if anyone's familiar with that, both counters
Yeah.
entirely full.
Yeah.
All casseroles.
And a table full of desserts.
Yeah, I've never seen so many casseroles in one place.
Yeah.
It was something.
Lots of
I
casseroles.
feel like I've missed out a lot in my food life because I just have this thing where it's like, if I don't know where it was made,
Yeah.
you'd be the nicest person ever. I just have a hard time
Well,
eating it.
that's Heather.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's nothing against that person.
No.
It's just in my
No.
brain. I mean, I don't even share my food with my kids, so
Yeah.
that's a whole different
Yeah.
story.
I mean, but a bucket of KFC.
But you see it, yeah. Of course you trust KFC.
of course I do. What could go
All
wrong in a
local
restaurant?
restaurants, why wouldn't you trust
Yeah.
them?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Everything's great.
Yeah. But so anyway, lots of, I'm sure, very delicious, fabulous food.
Yeah, it was very
Oh, I'm
good.
sure.
I have a thing. So that's
Yeah.
it. But then we also, Jamie, you had a few moments of just
Yeah.
sharing some
I did. So-
vision and
Yeah, I wanted to. I kind of said a little bit of what you said earlier that there's like for one, this generation they've seen so much change, not just at Believers, which there's been a lot of change at
Yeah.
Believers, but just there's so much change happening, and it's happening so rapidly right now. And so, sometimes when there's change going on, there's fear involved, and it kind of causes you to just kind of pull back a little bit. And my encouragement to them was that they have so much experience following Jesus, and there are so many people that would benefit from their experience, but they need to lean in.
Right.
And even if it makes them feel uncomfortable, and I had a great story yesterday from someone who was there, and she said, "I just wanted to thank you for what you said on Friday." She said that actually happened to me. I was at a B group. I signed up for a B group. I showed up at this group. I was by far the oldest person there. Everyone else was married. She was single. And she said, my first reaction was, I'm not going to stay. Like, this isn't the group for me. But it was a study that I really wanted to do, so I ended up staying. And she said, it was just one of the best experiences. And all of those young people are still, they're all my friends.
Yeah.
And I said, yeah, I mean, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Like, that's what needs to be happening.
Yeah, break down the stereotypes.
Intentionally get yourself into some of those younger demographic groups so that you can. It was very cool. So
there's just so much wisdom from years of living too that you can share.
100%.
Yeah.
Plus, we had really great prizes, and
what were they?
The game was
Jitterbug.
The game was rigged. So,
of course it was.
I mean, Sam, if you were there,
you sound like Sam right now.
I know, but it's hard to not be convinced.
What Believers
of
game
it.
hasn't been a rig? I mean, I can't name one.
So one guy with one card won 3 rounds of bingo.
That's true.
Whoa, was he just really? Can you be good at bingo?
No, you can't be good at it, but you can be lucky. He was lucky.
Or it's rigged.
Or it's rigged.
That's pretty crazy.
Yeah, and then the other winner was two games with 2 cards at another table.
So you guys played about 5 games?
5 games, 2 winners.
Oh, we played more than 5 games.
Not many more.
We played 8 games.
Okay, 3 more.
Okay.
Yeah, so
I think you're both right.
There's
so 50% of the winners were 2 people.
Yeah.
Of the 8.
That
was my larger point.
You should have picked a better card.
Did you all have to shuffle cards after every round?
No.
Oh.
No, they were allowed to keep them or trade in for a different one.
See, I think you become familiar with your card, so you know where your numbers are. Some people miss numbers. I mean, that's a real thing in bingo.
Well, for sure it is.
I mean, if you're not paying attention.
It's the only way.
Yeah, honestly. It's really the only way you can lose if you have a winning card. Is if you miss a number.
Yeah.
I've been there many times.
Also, you alluded to this, but the best part of it was it started at 5:30.
Yeah.
Everyone was out by 7:30. I was home and done by 8 o'clock on a Friday night. Sign me up for the Boomer Generation.
It was amazing.
I love it.
Yeah.
I loved it.
Yeah, the grand prize was a gift card for Cracker Barrel.
Yeah, obviously.
Which is so good. Everyone had a great sense of humor about the whole thing. It was super fun. It was great.
One of our prizes was also
Werther's
a mug.
Originals.
No.
The mug was fantastic.
We did have wrapped butterscotch.
Oh, you have to, at each table?
No, just at the dessert table. There was like a few different candies.
Yeah, keep talking. Keep thinking of more jokes about it.
The mug was like texting
for seniors.
Acronyms, but for seniors.
Oh, that's great.
And so there's just a list of them.
Like their own made-up ones?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that's good.
It was pretty awesome.
And the guy who won 3 times was at the table with Mike Bradley, so he gave that mug to Mike. And I was reading over it, and Mike has actually said about half of the things on
That's true.
Where am I? Who am I? What am I doing? All that kind of stuff.
That's awesome.
It was fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was
maybe the next baby boomer night they open it. You gotta maybe bring the ages because you had a lot of people complain that they couldn't attend.
We did have a lot of people complain that they weren't allowed.
One person didn't even talk to you on Sunday. Walked right by you because he was so mad.
Yeah,
we'll leave his name off of this, but he was angry.
Yeah,
and stirring things up.
Yeah,
hostile environment.
That's good. That means it's a good event. People want to be there.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, things are going good. People are mad.
Yep.
All right. Well, what else did you guys do this weekend? I'll get to Revive here in just a minute.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
Oh gosh. I don't know what I did last week. It was wild. We were everywhere.
Oh, yeah. You did have a big weekend.
We did. The Hagers, we ended up in Lynchburg at Liberty University.
You just
just
random.
wound up.
You just
Yeah, we just headed up there for.
You just ended up in Lynchburg.
Just
Whoa,
funsies.
where are we? Oh, we're in Lynchburg.
Oh,
Yeah, you're going to talk about Revive, but so Revive went through Wednesday. So Wednesday we got done with that, and I drove home, picked up the family, and we drove straight to Lynchburg because my wife graduated with her PhD.
yeah.
This past week, which was unbelievable. I'm super proud of her.
Super amazing.
She got celebrated all week, so we're a new week though. So let's go ahead and move on from that, right?
Wow. I mean, I feel like
did great.
maybe one more moment.
Yeah, we'll
like
give her.
right now.
We'll probably give her the next
let's
week.
give
And
her
she
this.
got Mother's Day. I mean, good grief.
What a weekend.
She had a great weekend.
She did.
They just,
She worked for both of those.
yeah. I mean, you know,
For real.
Liberty campus is incredible.
Yeah.
It's immaculate. The landscaping. I'm a big grass guy.
Yeah, you got a game that you
Yeah,
have
lawnmower
business.
simulator.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I can appreciate
Yeah.
a well manicured lawn.
Yeah, you can.
And so they crush it up there. But we did all the things. And we had friends that had this house. I shared this with the worship team yesterday. It's expensive to get hotels there
for sure.
during the week
Oh, yeah.
of graduation. So we had great friends that they have this like cabin out in the mountains of Lynchburg or wherever we
Yeah.
were.
It's
Honestly.
like an hour away from Lynchburg.
Yeah, so we drive back to this house and you pull off the main road and it still said 31 minutes.
Wow.
And you know me, I'm a pretty big camper. Pretty big camping guy.
Yeah.
I
Loves
mean,
the outdoors.
Yeah.
oh my gosh, we drove forever and finally pull up to this house and huge fire pit. I mean, nobody's around. And we walk in and it was it was hilarious, but we were so grateful for this place because it was free. And so there's like probably 10 or 12 of us that stayed out there, maybe not that many. And we had a blast though.
Nice.
It was like the movie Grown Ups where they take the kids and like there's no Wi-Fi reception, there's no Wi-Fi, there's no cell phone reception, and they're like, what are we gonna do?
Kind of like that.
Yeah, and you start looking around, they're finding stuff to do outside and running around. So there was something about getting away from all of the things. So we had some great fires. But then we went to commencement on Friday night, and they did. The ceremony was fine. It was whatever. But afterwards, they did a fireworks show for like 25 minutes.
Really?
'Cause it was-
over the football stadium.
Was
it was their
because,
50th.
Yeah.
50th anniversary.
Okay.
50th graduating
commencement class.
Yeah, graduating class.
Wow. Cool.
So they did that, and then we drove home and got home and hung out Saturday, and then we had Mother's Day, and
Yeah.
then I have a great lunch experience on Mother's Day.
Yeah.
You can find me on Sunday. I'll tell you about it. I'm not going to share it on the air.
Yeah.
But
Typically, we share good reviews here.
Yeah, this was
we've shared a bad review or two, but yeah.
this was shut down
Yeah.
review.
Yeah.
So find me. I'll tell you the story. But no, then we cooked out last night for Jamie and just hung out, and it was a fantastic weekend. I'm just so very, very proud of my wife and the hard work she's put into all this.
Yeah. Very good.
We were a part of some of Jamie's celebration, but then our niece also graduated
Yeah.
from Liberty. So we were splitting time between some family stuff and some friend stuff.
Yep.
And that was just really fun to celebrate all of that. And then Friday, we were getting ready for the bingo extravaganza.
Yeah.
So that was really fun.
Yep.
And Saturday, once a month, I do, we just call it Sunroom Saturday with my sister-in-law and my girls. They come over early in the morning and we just chat about all the things in the sunroom. It's one of my favorite things to do. So we did that and had a day full of errands and that sort of thing. And then actually Sam and his family spontaneously came over.
Oh yeah, we did that. I forgot.
to
Sorry.
Grill out. And
My wife's aunt was in town from Ohio.
Yeah.
And so Nate took us on a boat ride. So
Yeah.
it
Oh,
was,
nice.
it was awesome.
did that for a little bit before the rain hit. So that was fun. And then yesterday after church, my kids prepared this beautiful brunch and we enjoyed that. My mom came over and then spent the day out on the river. And then last night we went to the Janet Jackson Ludacris concert
Oh, really?
Did you really?
Yeah.
Where's that at?
at the amphitheater.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
that's hilarious.
It was Great.
Was it?
Does Luda still have it?
I mean,
Still crushing?
sure. Yeah.
Oh, I love that.
It was great people watching and it was packed. We ended
Was
up
it?
Really?
being at the very top of the lawn.
Yeah.
But it was like almost the best place to be because we could just see the sea of people.
Yeah.
Oh my
and
gosh.
the amphitheater's upgraded all of their screens now. They've
Yeah.
done it in a couple phases. So last year all of the lawn screens were redone and now all of the screens down in the seating area are
really?
redone. So it
They're
looks
like video walls now?
awesome. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
It looks really good.
That place
so
caught
it
on
was
fire,
so
though.
fun.
Is it all good? Like,
Oh, I
it's-
didn't even know that. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, the whole back like
Yeah.
burned up like a couple months
Really?
ago.
Yeah, it was a few months ago, a couple, 3 months ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looked fine.
Oh, great.
It was great.
There you go.
Janet Jackson. I love
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, that's incredible.
Yeah. She's
Throwback.
I mean, I would have never
Yes.
guessed that's what you were going to say next.
yeah, that's what I do.
Yeah, so
Go
cool.
to Janet Jackson
That's great.
concerts.
Yeah.
Jamie, what'd you do?
Yeah, so my whole rhythm changes when I'm not teaching on Sunday, I noticed.
Yeah,
Well,
probably.
yeah.
That's a good thing.
It really was kind of nice. So Saturday I did yard work most of the day, which
Oh, you love
I
doing
hate
that.
doing.
Man, you in this yard.
I had to cut all the roses, all the rose bushes back. And so you had to
I
have
need to do that.
long sleeves on for that. So
Yeah.
I was baking.
Oh,
It
yeah.
was so
It was
hot. But yeah, got a lot done out in the yard, doing all that stuff. Friday was bingo. Yesterday we had everybody come over for Mother's Day. Had our kids and
Grandbaby.
grandbaby Esther came over. That was fun. Everyone got to hold her, even my uncle. So
Oh,
that was
nice.
super fun.
And you were celebrating her baby dedication.
And baby dedication yesterday. Yeah, so it was a very big Mother's Day.
Did you have anything special to eat?
Cooked on the Blackstone, did
Okay.
veggies and salmon,
Oh,
and
nice.
it was very, very good. Yeah. And then I was walking the Fritz that evening, and I walked by the Whitehorns, and they came out and said, "Hey, why don't you get Bonnie and come on up here? We're about to have dessert." So
Oh, nice.
yeah, so we went up there, and Julie made I think it was white chocolate raspberry cheesecake.
Oh,
and
wow.
like New York style. Like it was. I'm not even a big dessert
Yeah.
guy. That
love
was
cheesecake.
amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was super good. So that was an unexpected bonus.
Yeah.
Yeah, super nice. So we hung out there for a couple hours, and then
You should time that more often. Like
I
just
know.
make note of what time that was.
exactly. I'm
So like Sunday
get dessert
nights.
free.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, you're like, oh, really? You're doing that again?
oh, this is amazing.
Interesting.
Yeah, I thought what I might do is just walk up to their window and look in
Oh yeah, just kind of stand there.
every once in a while. Yeah,
Yeah.
see what comes from that. Yeah, it was fun. So yeah,
Good.
that was the weekend. I wanted to hit on this just to mention it. Last week on Tuesday, Wednesday, we did something. I don't know if we'll ever do it again or not, but it was fun. We did.
Mainly because we don't repeat things very often.
We don't. But we were part of something else.
Right.
So left to us, we probably would never do it again.
Yeah, that's probably true.
But as a part of this network that we're in, Irresistible Church Network, the Virginia churches tend to get along really well, which is kind of fun. So there's Grace Bible in Virginia Beach, and Hill City in Richmond, and Dulles in Northern Virginia. The four churches got together, and we had a little conference. Day and a
Yeah,
half.
I loved because the four lead pastors, you guys kept referring to it as like kind of this family reunion.
Yeah.
Like you were the uncles and
Yeah,
all of our
we know
staff.
each other and
Yeah.
we love each other, and then no one on our staff really knows
Knows
each
them,
other.
yeah.
So we said, "Yeah, we're the uncles. You're all the cousins that we hope get along."
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah,
It's perfect illustration.
Megan and
was.
I had a chance to. It was people from all the churches,
Yeah.
worship teams, and mainly their staff, all staff members, and that was super cool to connect because, like
It
you
was
said,
great.
we had never connected with them. That's always a little bit, as musicians don't play fair all the time, but this was pretty awesome, and they all had just such a great personalities and like just really could connect like super easy. So that I was grateful for that. So that was a really cool.
The worship times were just so cool. Not only was the worship really great, but just seeing the teamwork of the churches together was just so great. I loved it.
Yes.
Yeah, I also think there were a couple of really good breakout sessions, and you led one of them on resilient, which you really took from some of the all staffs that we've gone through, and even like our last night of impact, you shared a lot of
little
that
bit of that
stuff. So
yeah, it's been fun. That's been a study that's kind of. I also shared it with another nonprofit. Free Kind. I led those 3 sessions that I led with our staff, with their staff, and then have the opportunity to do the breakout there too. That was just really fun. Yeah, it was good.
Yeah, I think it's really cool too, just how you were saying, we've really been able to, from our partnership with ICN, Irresistible Church Network, realize what we were looking for in a network.
Yes.
And that's creating this space for our staffs to know other churches and get along with other churches and realize that we have one voice and one like goal, and that even in our differences as churches, we can work together to affect our communities for Christ. And that's just been so cool. And one of the things that really affected me at Revive was one of the breakouts went kind of sideways. It went a little bit off the rails of what the leadership team that was putting this all together was hoping for. And instead of just dismissing it and like not dealing with it, or dealing with it once we got done with the conference, I mean, you guys as a leadership team just stepped into that moment. You offered an apology. You valued what needed to be valued in that. And to see that, like we experienced that here, I think, but to see that across the board in several churches, and for you guys to do it in such a unified way, I was so impressed by the humility of leadership in that, and continue to just be so grateful to be led by you, but then to also see that that's happening at other churches.
Yeah, it's super great. And I think while the churches are all unique, I mean, they all have their own thing, there is such a commonality between us.
Yep.
And just a shared heart for how we're doing ministry that is definitely evident in all of the things.
Yeah.
And so, there was a person that led the breakout that's what kind of went sideways. And that person was honored also.
Yes.
Like just the whole way that thing. And so we stayed, and it was great. Like the 4 churches, the 4 leaders, there were 5 of us. Because Hill City has co-pastors. And so, the 5 of us met, and just kind of without any conflict at all. Just we were so united in how we were handling it. It was just really great. Yeah. So super fun. And the idea is we go to Drive Conference in Atlanta every other year. And then
with all the ICN
of the ICN churches, and the idea is to do something in the in between. And Drive is all about going further faster, and it's all about tactics and practice, and it's a very tactical kind of conference. And this one, our intent was that it would be very heart focused, about our walk with Christ. So it was really, really good.
It was.
There is a what the what.
Well, you can do it.
I just did. What the what?
Oh,
Yeah, that's how it should sound, Heather. I know it's shocking
what
to
a
you.
downer.
Right?
I love it.
This sucks.
Oh, you cannot say that word on the air.
I just did.
Oh man.
Ugh.
Circle Up last week. It was a doozy. Man, oh man.
I wasn't there.
I know. It was the
man.
smallest circle up we've ever had. And that thing was a train wreck.
Gosh.
Oh my gosh. And of all
Did it get
things,
spicy?
it was Tyler.
Oh, wow.
The one that no one would have expected it from.
Oh, man.
It was really
Was he
something.
cussing?
Wow.
It wasn't cussing, but it's a word I won't say on
All right,
for
you gotta-
Mondays.
Oh, my gosh.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
All right, we'll take our comments off air later.
And you're the one that always says that things blow.
Yeah. I mean, things do
Man,
blow.
I can't wait.
Right.
That's great.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. I can't wait.
Tyler.
I can't wait till this week.
Yeah.
After last Thursday.
I'm so excited to hear about
Yeah.
this.
Yes.
Oh
So,
my gosh.
if you liked the what,
That was good.
then just
This
email
is so dumb.
made for Mondays at believerschurch.org and give your vote for the.
I'm not participating.
Well, Jeremy's working on a sound effect for it so that
Oh.
Heather doesn't always have to do it.
Yeah,
But we're in negotiations to not let Heather do the sound effect.
I got you.
We'd like to come up with something else. But
All right.
Heather is not allowing it. We haven't even asked her, but I know she's not allowing it.
We haven't even asked her. Okay, well, here's the
Just
question.
remember that I'm both of your bosses. So
Oh, okay.
Well, you're not my boss.
no, I know. I'm theirs.
Oh, Jeremy's in the room.
Yeah, Jeremy's in the room.
Yeah. I was just trying to be clear.
Yeah. No. You're my boss for
Jeez,
sure.
we don't have to go to an org chart.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just pulling rank if I
Yeah.
need to.
All right, here's the question. Good morning, Made for Mondays crew. I love the example from Exodus that we got yesterday and how God taught his people to rely on him by gathering just enough food for the day because he would continue to provide for them and they needed to trust that. Have you found yourself in a season where you needed to take your trust in God day by day for his provision? Were there any specific practices that you did in that season? While I can't go outside and gather food from God for today, I would love a practical way to sit in that posture of reliance daily. Thanks, friends. Kendra Carl.
Oh,
Such
I
a
love
good
that
question.
girl.
I know.
It's my daughter-in-law. Yeah. I mean, the answer is yes.
Yeah.
I have sat in those seasons.
I have too.
And they suck. I'm saying it again.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to get a bleep. But
No, they're awful. They can be really awful. But they can also be those seasons where we become profoundly aware of our dependence on God.
Sure.
And so they can also be such just like growth seasons.
Yeah.
And I think as far as like what you can do practically in those seasons to be mindful of that or to lean into that dependence for me has been just sitting in God's word. We've talked about it, throughout even the resilience stuff, like just mindful meditation on who he is. And so to pick out a verse or two, a passage that you just kind of daily go to in those seasons that you read in new and different ways, that you're able to insert your name into the passage to claim it as your own. That's some things that I've done. I think in those seasons, it's really important to strip away other voices or even the music we listen to, or just, it's not that like you should never listen to secular music or you should never, but that in those seasons when you're aware that that's what's ludicrous, that you're wrestling with, that you're sitting in, is to just be really focused on building sort of a sanctuary of around you that you're sitting in as much as you possibly can.
Yeah.
Mine's just to shut up. I mean, just be quiet. Whenever I'm in a situation like that, I want to answer it so fast. So if God's not answering it for me, the Holy Spirit's not leading me immediately, I start doing it myself. Okay, well, I can come up with this. I can try to do this. Franklin Graham spoke at the commencement address, and one of his things that he shared was this idea of just remaining open to God instead of trying to answer all of your questions, or especially specific to the graduates, what you're going to do next. But that can be for anybody in whatever season you're in. Like, what am I supposed to do next? Just remain open. And the only way I can do that is just to quiet my mind and listen for when the Holy Spirit's going to speak, because he will. It might not be today. And so then I try to answer everything, but like, give it each day. You know, you were talking about that day by day. Today, I'm going to trust him that he's going to lead me where I need to be. And if he doesn't give me all the answers today, tomorrow is the next day. I'm going to do the same thing the next day. Like, it's difficult, but yeah, those seasons are just so tough.
Yeah, they're tough. Almost everyone goes through them.
Right.
Yes.
That's the other thing. I think just reminding yourself of that sometimes, that, I'm not alone. Bonnie and I we went through a solid decade of, you talked about your first 15 years of marriage.
Yeah.
Ours was at least the first 10 years of our marriage was just scraping, and it was rough. Another thing that is helpful to me, for one, okay, we all kind of pass this way, but the other is it really is just a season. I think that perspective is just really helpful, because like when you're in the middle of it, it can be so overwhelming. But if you just kind of keep in mind you're one day closer to pushing through this thing. Yeah, look for the lessons. I do think journaling. Like my journals, I typically only journal when I'm really going through it.
Right.
So like if anyone were to pick up my journal after I die, they're going to be like, man, this guy's
Jesus
life was
Christ.
terrible. Because that's about the only
Job
time I do it.
2.0.
Yeah. But it's because there's so many less, like I'm trying to process what are the wins here, because there are some. And so, pull out those things that, that you're learning, that you're hearing, that you're, maybe even it's someone else who speaks into, your life at that time. I can almost think of almost every time I've been in one of those seasons that have been really, really brutal. God has used someone, to kind of speak into my life. And yeah, just, being mindful of what you're learning. It's lean into that, keep pushing forward. You're one day closer.
Example of journaling, and even to go back to those journals in those seasons.
Yeah.
Because you then claim the faithfulness of God in your own life that you have already seen.
Yeah.
I think that's something that
You can
I've
forget
seen
it
God.
so easily.
Yeah, I've seen God do that in our marriage, like where we can be hitting one of those seasons, and for whatever it is, one of us has the perspective of, hey, but remember the last time we were here?
Yeah.
And like reminds us together of, oh yeah, God really did end up showing up there, and he provided in these ways. And so, yeah, I think our journals can serve as that reminder too of, oh yeah, I did go through something similar or something just as difficult in the moment, and look at this journal and how I saw him provide for me. And that can be encouraging too.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's a good segue into the topic of yesterday, which was overcoming fear. And so it was Mother's Day, and you talked about some of your fears as a young mom, and I felt like that was so relatable. And even if you didn't have, if you don't have preemies like you did, which has its own set of fears, but parenting itself is just a fear-filled endeavor.
Yes.
So talk just a little bit about, some of those fears, and just what facing those fearful kind of seasons, what it does.
Yeah. It can definitely be parenting, especially with our practice kids, aka our firstborns.
Practice.
Like no one knows what we're doing with our practice kids.
It's like the Nate Bargatze joke.
Yeah.
It's like the first one shows up and it's like, am I even supposed to be here?
Yeah, I don't. These people aren't ready for
They're
me.
not ready.
No.
No.
Yeah, I think that's how I feel as with our firstborn, who was highly offended that I didn't mention that he also is okay.
Yeah, he made it.
Yeah, you did mention the giant, your giant
Trey.
kid.
Yeah.
Spencer also survived his preemie days.
He did.
And
He was running sound free.
He's
yesterday,
doing real
actually.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also very tall.
Yes.
He is also very tall.
Yes.
So, yeah, I think there's, like our own lives, the parenting journey, we go through seasons where these newborns come home and
Right.
you don't know what to do with this thing, and they are so utterly dependent on you for all things. And that's fearful if you're doing it right. And then
I couldn't even take off the kids' shirts because I didn't want to hurt their heads
Yeah.
for a little bit. Like you
Right.
go through those
Yeah.
seasons, you're like, I don't even want to
oh
touch
my gosh,
you.
I wouldn't
you
clip
gonna
their
sur-
nails.
Oh yeah.
Nate did all of that because I refused. I was like, it's too much pressure. So yeah, there's like that infant stage, and then you kind of get through that and you're like, oh yeah, we got this. We know what to do with these babies and what they need and when they need it, and we understand their cries and we understand these things. And then you get into the toddler stage, and that brings a whole new level of challenges, and that just continues
Monsters.
all the way through.
Yeah.
And I think again, like we would not have done as well, which I know is not saying much at all, but without our church family and
Yeah.
community. Like, we had so much support in raising our children that I just can't imagine having to pull that off
Yeah.
without, there's just no way.
Yeah. I was talking with a parent yesterday who dedicated their baby, and he was just saying, even just like the world,
Yeah.
and here's his moment of parenting, and he just feels like, man, the world is out of control.
Right.
And it's fearful. What is this world going to be like for my kid?
Mm-hmm.
And that's another fear. Like there's no shortage of fear.
Right.
There is no shortage.
There's
of
no
it.
shortage. And like you said, like it never ends either. So, I've got, a 27-year-old and a 30-year-old, and you have different fears
Yeah.
for them.
And now you
Now you get to be
grandparent
afraid
fears.
for your
Yeah.
grandchild.
Right.
Yeah, so it just never ends. And that's why this topic is just such a great and relevant topic. You were talking, you went back to, we started the series looking at kind of Jesus addressing this kingdom of heaven, and it is a theme of this, which is helpful in addressing fears. It's kind of back to Kendra's question, like the season that we're in. So we're in a season of the unveiling of this kingdom of heaven.
Yeah.
That's also true. So you talked through the 3 phases of the kingdom of heaven. Was that from Jatani's book?
Yeah.
Okay. Can you kind of walk us back through that? Because I do think there's some confusion around this idea of the kingdom of heaven. Like, is it just heaven, like after we're dead? But then Jesus tells us to pray that his kingdom come
Right.
now. So, like, walk us through that just a little bit.
Yeah. Sky in his book didn't go as deep into it as I was addressing it yesterday, but there a lot of most scholars kind of break the kingdom of heaven or God's kingdom into 3 phases. And so phase 1 is when the kingdom of heaven like actually comes to earth. And it's not like this fortress move, like this God's kingdom and these castles and buildings and whatever,
Yeah.
like now are planted on earth. That's not what it is. It's actually through the person of Jesus. So that first phase of kingdom of heaven coming to earth was when Jesus was born, and it lasted through his childhood and into his ministry years and through his death and resurrection and even into his ascension. Like that kind of culminated that first phase. And then phase 2 is what we're in now. And that is realized still in people.
Yeah.
It's just realized through us, through Jesus's followers, which he's equipped to be kingdom bearers, to be people of the kingdom through the power of the Holy Spirit. And so that's what he's, he was setting up the people during his earthly ministry to take that on once he left. And now we are carrying that on through this second phase. And then phase 3, the consummation phase, will be fully realized when Jesus comes back and we are living in eternity.
Yeah, so the implications of that are, so eternity, obviously, that's where there will be no fear.
Right.
Because everything's going to go according
Let's
to
do
God's
it.
plan.
Let's get there.
So this phase that we're in right now is this one where we're ambassadors. We represent this kingdom. We live out the values of this kingdom.
Right.
But we do so in
Other world.
another world
Yeah.
that does not embrace these same kingdom values,
Yeah.
which is dicey.
It's, very dicey. And I think it's one of those, it's hard to be, we're foreigners in that.
Yeah.
And so not everything else around us is operating that way. So to be operating without fear in a very fear-riddled society,
Yeah.
I mean, that's just so challenging.
I think it'd be it's confusing to me as well. I think so often it's like, why isn't God not, like, why are we not seeing the next kingdom yet? Like, you look around and you see all these things go in the world, all this fear that we have, and I just always have that sentiment of like, why, like, what is he waiting for? But then we obviously know who he's waiting for. Like, he's waiting for more of us to find out about him, to fall in love with him. But the fear that you live within that, it's just, it confuses me sometimes on that.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's not easy. So,
There's that question answered.
And responded.
yeah,
Because
Goodness.
there's not a solid answer.
there's not. So you quoted, it was a fairly long quote, and I'm not going to mention the guy's last name, Bob the scholar.
Bob Deffenbaugh.
Deffenbaugh.
Yeah.
Bob
what I
the
was gonna
scholar. Yeah. So Bob talks about the literary style of the Sermon on the Mount, which I thought was super interesting. And I'm actually this Sunday talking a little bit about how to interpret and understand different verses, because there is some challenge.
Yeah.
This was the words of Jesus spoken more than 2,000 years ago. Why is it important in reading through even the Sermon on the Mount to understand the nature of what type of literature it is?
Yeah, well, so Bob points out that the Sermon on the Mount is wisdom literature.
Right.
And that it's parallel to the Old Testament Hebrew poetic writings, which is really important because it helps us first, understand who Jesus is speaking to. So
Yeah.
Jesus is speaking a language that his listeners at that time would be very familiar with. And particularly the religious scholars that were trying to kind of upend his ministry. And so he was intentional in that. It wasn't like he was just having a regular conversation. I think he was very purposeful in how he was speaking to this crowd. And then it's also important because while we should take what he says seriously, we should also understand that he's communicating in a way that doesn't necessarily need to be taken literally. And what Deffenbaugh goes on to talk about is like this idea of an eye for an eye, or if
Yeah.
you struggle with this thing, the result is you should pluck your eye out. And
It's a sarcastic.
what
Or
was happening even at the time of this hearing was this, like, people were actually doing that because they were throughout history, as if they read it as this literal
Yeah.
interpretation, if they're really followers of Christ, they're taking it to this extreme.
Right.
And it's like, wait, seriously, we need to take it seriously, but understanding that he wasn't calling for people to start plucking out eyes.
Right.
So I think it's just, that's why it's important is to understand the context of what's being said, who it's being said to, and what our action should be in it.
Yeah. Then from there, you went and walked us through this flow chart of the tension between abundance and scarcity. And that was kind of the heart of your message, the tension between those two things, abundance and scarcity. So just walk through that a little bit and help us to understand those two mindsets and where they lead us.
Yeah, I think in reading Jatani's book, I found it so interesting that the title of this chapter was fear. Like when I first got to this passage in Matthew, like my go-to would not be like, oh yeah, this is about fear. My go-to theme would be that it was about finances or storing up our treasures or, where our values lie or something. But the fact that Sky put this fear theme on it was really interesting to me until I started diving into it a little bit more. And I love that he ties our fears to this tension of abundance and scarcity. And he points out in the book, the Exodus story, and we talked about that a little bit yesterday, but I think it even goes back to the garden where we see that we just wrestle as humans with this fear of not having enough.
Yeah.
And so even in the Garden of Eden, when God has provided all of the things that you could possibly want, like just this beauty and provision and food and like all of it, the enemy still was able to just put that question in, like, do you really have enough?
Yeah.
Do you have enough knowledge? Do you have enough understanding? Do you really have enough food? Like, why can't you eat from that? Then you would have it all.
Yeah.
And so we see that, and then we see that play out in the Exodus story. And even when, the Jewish people then leave Egypt and the Lord is providing for them every single day, what they're wrestling with is not having enough. And we had more when we were in slavery than we do now when we have freedom. And it's just, the enemy just warps and twists our thinking and all of that. And so, yeah, I think I just really appreciated Sky's take on that. And I'm going to turn to I have the book with me so I can talk through it a little bit. But I love the illustration that he uses because it forces us to evaluate really how big we think God is. So when we're wrestling with, will there be enough? If our answer is yes, there will be, it's because we've been able to come to the place where we know that God will provide and we will be safe. And if we know that he's going to provide and we'll be safe, then we know that the commands that he's given us make sense.
Yeah.
And those commands are to not worry and to give freely and to not love money. And if we don't worry and we give freely and we don't love money, then we're able to have freedom to love and serve others. But if we answer that question, that will there be enough with a no, then that means we don't even grasp who God is.
Yeah.
We don't put him in this place of full control over all things. And that's when, even like what you were talking about, Sam, we want to take control.
Right.
In that fear, then we're grasping for control of all the things. And we're not following his commands because we start to worry and we don't give freely. And we find ourselves loving money more than we love God, our creator and our provider.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. And I love I love how what you observed about that passage, how your go-to would be, it's about money, it's about this, it's about that. But those are the sources of fear that most of us live with on the daily. So, I love how it got to the heart of what that really is all about. And this idea, is God enough? You talked about the lordship of Jesus, which used to be like a big topic back in the 80s, early 90s. You don't hear about it as frequently.
How was it addressed in the 80s?
There was
Like, was there a...
there was a whole lordship salvation movement,
Oh,
and
really?
John MacArthur was a big voice in that. The Gospel According to Jesus was kind of a pivotal
Okay.
book in that whole movement. But there was this argument back and forth, and I know shocking that John MacArthur would be engaged in a theological
weird.
argument.
Super weird.
Yeah, not much has changed except for what they're arguing
Right.
about. But back then it was about lordship salvation, or I'm trying to remember what the other side of that was. It was something to do with like cheap grace, basically.
Okay.
You know, and MacArthur's idea was, and I think it's a biblical solid one, was no, faith in Jesus is not just enough to pray a prayer and say, I have faith. It requires repentance, and it requires a surrender to the lordship of Christ. And so there's easy believism. That's the other side of that.
Okay.
So lordship salvation versus easy believism.
Wow, what amazing terms.
I love believism.
Yeah. It was a hotly contested theological debate. It's actually still a pretty valid debate, and there's a lot of churches that would fall on the side of just, pray the sinner's prayer, sign the block, walk the aisle, do the thing, and okay, now you're good. You got your ticket to heaven, and it doesn't really matter what happens from here until then.
Well, that kind of falls into what we've been talking about with this conflict of the followers of Jesus taking him seriously or not, right?
100%. Yeah. So, so the lordship of Jesus.
Yeah.
So, elaborate on the term, because it is not a term that gets used much.
Yeah. Did you want to say?
No, go ahead.
Okay. I mean, I feel like we just simplify things here a lot. So to me, it's just our mission statement.
Yeah.
It's recognizing that in him we lack nothing, that he is abundant. And so we are making Jesus number one. And so he's being seated in that rightful place as creator, as provider of all things. And so he deserves authority as followers of him. He deserves full authority over our hearts and our desires and our minds. And the way that we can just kind of sum that all up is that idea that we've made him number one in our lives.
Yeah.
And that's honoring his lordship.
Yeah.
I mean, we were joking about it before, but it's the org chart.
Yeah.
Jesus is Lord.
Yeah.
It seems simple, but sometimes you got to see it, and you got to read, okay, this is his authority. This is who he is. This is what he does for us, and this is what we can do through him.
Yeah.
But he's at the top of that. I mean, he's at the top of that list.
Yeah.
Everything else kind of trickles down from that. But yeah, that's kind of how I simplified in my head.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, the dilemma is for many people who would say that they follow Jesus, they add Jesus to the list of things in their life.
Right.
And that's kind of the distinction that I want to try to help you, grasp. If Jesus is Lord, if he's King, if he's number one, then he's not just an add-on. He's in everything. Like whatever he says goes. Whatever. If we build our life on what he teaches, our lives matter. That's what Jesus said.
Yeah.
And
I think we filter ourselves
Yeah.
through him. We don't filter him through us.
yes, and yeah,
But people only do. But I think for a lot, the problem sometimes becomes when we just do that for the hard decisions.
Yeah.
What job am I supposed to take? Where am I supposed to move to? What am I supposed to do when my kid's in real big trouble or whatever? We do that for God. We give him lordship over those things in certain ways. But I think for us, it's the simple things that we don't kind of tap into his lordship for, and we just try to do that on our own. Even the idea we talk about our bodies and how we treat our bodies. Well, we just do that ourselves.
Yeah.
We don't we don't look at his lordship for those things.
But every example
yeah.
that you just gave was an example that you don't have any choice because you have zero control over any of those
Yeah.
things. So he's Lord over all the stuff that I
Yep.
can't control,
Yep,
and all the stuff that's
exactly.
within my control, I
That's
take
me.
charge of.
Yeah.
And that's not the lordship of Christ.
true.
Right.
Yeah. So that's really good. That's a great distinction. And you said this, and I love this line. You said, "As we seek the kingdom of God above all else, above the desires that enslave us, a shift happens, and our new desires become God's. His desire is that more and more people would come into a deep understanding of who He is through who we are." I love that line.
Me too.
And it's this idea. I mean, that's a great elaboration of the lordship of Christ. More and more, we're enslaved less and less because He's more and more in charge. So, how does this shift in what we desire play into these promises of provision?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's realizing that it's not my bills didn't get paid and my groceries weren't purchased, and it's not even my physical health is like I'm not just like this completely healthy person, or just all of these desires that we kind of sit in and we want, we hope for, we wish for ourselves, for the people we love. It's a totally different mindset. It's that our desire becomes that Jesus becomes greater and greater, and I become less and less. As I grow in my relationship with Him, I become more aware of how great He is. And so until I'm in pursuit of that and in pursuit of understanding the greatness that both we talked about yesterday in the John 3 passage and in the Ephesians 3 passage of the greatness of God and His great love for us that is we can't fully understand until that becomes our pursuit. Our like human desires win out.
Yeah.
It's what we stay focused on.
Right.
But when we when we make the effort to pursue Jesus and to pursue an understanding of His great love for us, that we will not fully understand this side of heaven, that our desires shift and that desire becomes more. We want that more than we worry for these things.
Yeah. And that's the promise of provision that He has made.
Yeah.
His promise of provision isn't the stuff that we're preoccupied with.
It's that we'll understand His love for us more.
Yes. Yeah, that's so huge. And it's a subtle thing, but it's so huge. And, people wrestle with how God's going to gimme.
Yes.
Where what He really wants us to be is pursuing the things that that are most important to Him, that they become most important to us, and then in that pursuit, He will provide for those things that are the most important.
Yeah.
So good. I love
Yes.
that. So you concluded with the St. Patrick story. Recap that for us just a bit, and then how does that tie into your big idea?
Yeah, I love this part of Jatani's book because he just very quickly summarizes this amazing story of St. Patrick. And I didn't even know that he wasn't Irish. I could have sworn the man was Irish.
He was a
he was a Brit.
missionary to Ireland.
Yep.
And so just his life, I'm sure there's so much more to learn about. But what Jatani highlights is just that he was, born a Brit. He was kidnapped as a young boy. He was sold into slavery and then was shipped to Ireland. And part of his story is that he falls in love with Jesus and understands that in his circumstances, as bleak as they were, Christ is all he had.
Yeah.
And he had just complete trust and faith in him to provide for all that he needed. And so one of his prayers was that he wrote, and he wrote several, but one that has become like popularized, I guess, is the breastplate of St. Patrick. And many people know kind of the last portion of it, the Christ with me, Christ before me, and he goes through all of these Christ statements. And Jamie, on St. Patrick's Day this year, you shared the full prayer. And then going through this, I just was so struck that Rochelle could do something amazing with the whole prayer. And what I think is relevant about it is, like, that would be a good answer to Kendra's question of what could you do? Like, what could I do daily? Read this prayer every day, because it just reminds you of, despite all of these things that we face, all of these fears that come at us from all sorts of different directions, Christ is with me.
Yeah.
He's before me, he's behind me, he's in me, he's beneath me, he's above me. Christ is on my right, Christ is on my left. Christ when I lie down, Christ when I sit down, Christ when I rise. Like, all of the fears, Christ is in the middle of it.
Yeah.
And there's nothing more relevant.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
So good.
Rochelle could memorize all that, and I can't even memorize one song. I got to have a confidence monitor.
Very true.
Yeah, she started that Sunday during run through, and I was like, hey, do you need the words somewhere?
Yeah.
And she crushed it.
Yeah.
She sure
Very
did.
cool.
Yeah.
Well, that's all we have time for. So thanks for joining us for this. Please share it out and I guess review it. You can give it a thumbs up or something. That would be good too. But yeah, share these resources out. And that's really what they are. They're resources to help people grow in their faith. At least that's our hope on that. We'll see you again this Sunday. We're going to continue. There's only 2 more weeks left in this series. And so we'll be landing this series over the next couple weeks. So join us this Sunday, 9 or 10:45. Thanks for being here. Go and be love.